Murder and violence. Violence is an integral part of the Camorra's operations, used both to enforce their control over their territories and to settle disputes with rival clans. Murder is often the ultimate tool of intimidation, with the Camorra using targeted killings to eliminate enemies, silence witnesses, and send a message to those who might oppose them. The Camorra is notorious for its brutal methods, including assassinations carried out in broad daylight, the use of explosives, and the murder of not only rivals, but also innocent bystanders and family members of their enemies. This culture of violence has created a climate of fear in many parts of Naples, where residents are often too afraid to speak out against the Camorra, even when they are victims of their crimes. The Camorra is one of the oldest and most powerful criminal organizations in Italy, with a history stretching back several centuries. Unlike the more centralized Sicilian mafia, the Camorra operates as a loose confederation of clans, each with its own territory, leadership, and criminal activities. This decentralized structure has allowed the Camorra to be remarkably adaptable, thriving in the ever-changing landscape of organized crime. Origins and early history. The origins of the Camorra can be traced back to the 16th century, during the Spanish rule of Naples. It began as a secret society known as the Bella Società Riformata, or the Beautiful Reformed Society. The society was composed of local criminals and bandits who banded together to protect their interests against the oppressive Spanish authorities. Over time, the organization evolved, and by the 19th century, it had become a significant force in Neapolitan society. In the early 1800s, the Camorra began to exert control over various aspects of life in Naples. They provided protection to local businesses, often through extortion, and controlled the city's black market. The Camorra's influence extended to politics, with many local politicians relying on their support to maintain power. During this period, the Camorra developed its characteristic structure, with individual clans controlling specific territories and engaging in various criminal enterprises. The rise of the Camorra in the 20th century. The early 20th century saw the Camorra's influence spread beyond Naples to other parts of Italy and even abroad. During the fascist regime of Benito Mussolini, many Camorra leaders were imprisoned or forced to flee, but the organization quickly re-established itself after World War II. The post-war period was marked by rapid urbanization and economic growth in Italy, which provided fertile ground for the Camorra to expand its activities. During the 1950s and 1960s, the Camorra became deeply involved in the construction industry, particularly in Naples. They used their control over local governments and unions to secure lucrative contracts, often through bribery and intimidation. This period also saw the Camorra's involvement in the drug trade begin to grow. At first, they acted as intermediaries, helping to smuggle narcotics from South America to Europe. But they soon realized the enormous profits that could be made by taking a more direct role in drug trafficking. Drug trafficking and the rise of the Camorra clans. By the 1970s and 1980s, the Camorra had become one of the leading players in the international drug trade. They established connections with South American drug cartels, particularly in Colombia, and began importing large quantities of cocaine and heroin into Europe. The profits from drug trafficking allowed the Camorra to expand its influence and power even further. One of the most notorious Camorra clans to emerge during this period was the Nuova Camorra Organizzata, NCO, led by Raffaele Cutolo. Cutolo was a charismatic and ruthless leader who sought to unite the various Camorra clans under his control. Under his leadership, the NCO became heavily involved in drug trafficking, extortion, and murder. Cutolo's ambition to dominate the Camorra led to a brutal internal war between the NCO and other Camorra clans, resulting in hundreds of deaths. Despite Cutolo's eventual imprisonment, the Camorra continued to thrive. The 1980s and 1990s saw the rise of new Camorra leaders, such as Paulo Di Lauro and Michel Zaza, who expanded the organization's drug trafficking operations even further. The Camorra also became involved in other criminal activities, including arms smuggling, money laundering, and human trafficking. The Camorra's influence on society. The Camorra's power and influence extend far beyond the realm of organized crime. In many parts of Naples and the surrounding region, the Camorra effectively acts as a parallel government, providing services such as loans, jobs, and protection that the state fails to offer. This has made the Camorra deeply entrenched in the local economy and society, making it difficult for law enforcement to combat their activities. The Camorra's influence on local politics is also significant. Over the years, many politicians have been accused of having ties to the Camorra or of being directly involved in their activities. Corruption is widespread, with the Camorra using bribes and intimidation to secure contracts, influence elections, and ensure the loyalty of public officials. This has created a vicious cycle in which the Camorra's power perpetuates itself, making it extremely difficult to root out. The Camorra's impact on the economy of Naples and the surrounding region is both profound and devastating. Their control over the construction industry, for example, has led to widespread corruption and the construction of substandard buildings, often with tragic consequences. The Camorra's involvement in waste management has resulted in environmental disasters, with toxic waste being illegally dumped in the countryside, leading to long-term health problems for local residents. The Camorra and the international drug trade. The Camorra's involvement in the international drug trade has made them one of the most powerful criminal organizations in Europe. They have established extensive networks for the distribution of cocaine, heroin, and synthetic drugs throughout Italy and other parts of Europe. The profits from drug trafficking have allowed the Camorra to diversify their activities, investing in legitimate businesses and expanding their criminal enterprises into new areas. One of the key factors in the Camorra's success in the drug trade is their ability to operate under the radar. Unlike the Sicilian mafia, which is known for its highly hierarchical structure, the Camorra is decentralized, with each clan operating independently. This makes it difficult for law enforcement to dismantle the organization as a whole, as taking down one clan does not necessarily weaken the others. The Camorra's involvement in the drug trade has also had a significant impact on the communities where they operate. In many poor neighborhoods of Naples, drug addiction is rampant, and the Camorra exploits this by controlling the supply of drugs and using addicts as low-level dealers. The violence associated with the drug trade has also taken a heavy toll on these communities, with frequent turf wars between rival clans leading to numerous deaths. The Camorra and extortion is one of the Camorra's most traditional and reliable sources of income. Known as pizzo, the practice involves demanding protection money from local businesses in exchange for protection. Failure to pay can result in threats, violence, or even death. The Camorra's control over certain neighborhoods is so complete that almost every business is forced to pay the pizzo, regardless of size or profitability. The Camorra's extortion activities extend beyond small businesses to larger enterprises, including construction companies, restaurants, and even multinational corporations. The money collected through extortion is used to fund the Camorra's other criminal activities, as well as to maintain the loyalty of clan members and support imprisoned associates. One of the most insidious aspects of the Camorra's extortion activities is the way it stifles economic growth and innovation. Businesses that are forced to pay the pizzo have less money to invest in expansion or improvement, and the constant threat of violence creates a climate of fear that discourages entrepreneurship. This has contributed to the economic stagnation of Naples and other parts of southern Italy, where the Camorra's influence is strongest. Murder and violence. Violence is an integral part of the Camorra's operations. used both to enforce their control over their territories and to settle disputes with rival clans. Murder is often the ultimate tool of intimidation, with the Camorra using targeted killings to eliminate enemies, silence witnesses, and send a message to those who might oppose them. The Camorra is notorious for its brutal methods, including assassinations carried out in broad daylight, the use of explosives, and the murder of not only rivals, but also innocent bystanders and family members of their enemies. This culture of violence has created a climate of fear in many parts of Naples, where residents are often too afraid to speak out against the Camorra, even when they are victims of their crimes. One of the most infamous examples of Camorra violence was the Campania feud in the early 2000s. This brutal war between rival Camorra clans in the Campania neighborhood of Naples resulted in hundreds of deaths over several years. The violence was fueled by a dispute over control of the lucrative drug trade in the area, and it left a lasting scar on the community, with many residents living in constant fear. The Camorra and law enforcement combating the Camorra has been a significant challenge for Italian law enforcement. The organization's decentralized structure, coupled with their deep roots in local communities, makes them difficult to infiltrate and dismantle. Over the years, there have been numerous high-profile arrests of Camorra leaders, but the organization has proven remarkably resilient, with new leaders quickly emerging to replace those who have been taken down. One of the most successful law enforcement efforts against the Camorra has been the work of anti-mafia prosecutors, such as Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, who were instrumental in bringing many Camorra leaders to justice. However, these efforts have often come at a high cost, with both Falcone and Borsellino being assassinated by the Sicilian mafia in retaliation for their work. Despite these challenges, law enforcement has made some progress in recent years. The introduction of new laws, such as the ability to seize assets from convicted mafiosi, has weakened the Camorra's financial power. Additionally, the increasing use of wiretaps and other surveillance methods has led to the arrest of many Camorra members and the disruption of their activities. The Camorra in the 21st century. The Camorra remains a formidable force in the 21st century, with an estimated 100 clans and thousands of members operating in Naples and other parts of Italy. While their traditional activities, such as extortion and drug trafficking, continue to be their main sources of income, the Camorra has also adapted to the changing